Former FBI Director James Comey heading back to Capitol Hill Monday for more closed-door testimony about his role in the Russia investigation. Recently, Comey admitted he personally made the decision to send agents to the White House to interview Mike Flynn, which eventually led to charges against the former national security advisor.
Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. So if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought it's early enough. Let's just send a couple guys over.
Here to react, Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's going to question Comey on Monday. I mean, Matt, this guy's basically saying he took advantage of the disorganization in the Trump White House and really went after and kind of set up Mike Flynn. If this is about Russia, why isn't he going after Russians? Why is he trying to tee up Americans?
Well, thanks for having me on, Jesse, though I will say I think this is the first time I've been the third most handsome person on any Fox broadcast with you and Duffy.
Oh, thank you. You know what? The Duffy takes the cake, though. I mean, look at that hair.
Yeah, he's probably going to fire his comm staff for putting him on with us. But when it comes to Comey, I mean, you don't typically use the language "something I got away with" to describe something that is proper and good. Like, you never go home and say, "Hey, I got away with making it home before curfew." You know what I mean? You usually are getting away with things that are not right or not proper. And this will be the second time we bring Comey in, so it'll be like deja vu, but with all of the amnesia. It's kind of like when you combine deja vu with amnesia. Maybe he'll forget all of the things that he thought he was expected to tell us.
Yeah, it's amazing. He said, "I don't know, I don't remember, I forget," so many times. And for someone that basically investigated both presidential candidates at the same time, within a year of each other, and when you ask him a question about it, he doesn't know, Congressman Duffy. I thought he was supposed to be the smartest guy in the room with the most integrity.
Yeah, allegedly he's a guy who has a photographic memory as well, but here, there's only one of two choices. Either this is the biggest investigation that he has in his tenure as the FBI. He's going to investigate a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, and then the president, Donald Trump. Yeah. And here he comes to Congress, and basically he's a bumbling idiot, doesn't know anything that happened. And so we conclude one of two things. One, either he's stupid or he's lying to Congress. But you can't come in and say, "I don't recall or know any of the facts around the largest investigation that I've ever done in my tenure as the FBI director." It's laughable.
Right. And now we're hearing, Congressman Gaetz, about these after-action reports that were written about the Flynn interview. They were written 6 months after the fact, which is extremely fishy. And we already know that they went in there without a lawyer present for Flynn. They tried to kind of coax him and kind of keep him relaxed and keep him loose. And they had what he said to the Russian ambassador printed out. He didn't contradict anything. They never thought he was lying. How's he facing any time at this point? I don't get it.
I think President Trump should pardon Michael Flynn because he's not being called to account for any bad actions he committed with malice. It's largely a consequence of not remembering something or perhaps stating something in a different context. Even Comey said that there was no indicia of lying when Flynn originally met with these folks. Now, Jesse, compare that to Hillary Clinton, who had 9 lawyers present. Several of her lawyers that were present were actually fact witnesses that should not have been there. So for Hillary Clinton, they roll out the red carpet. They paved the yellow brick road to no consequence. But yet with Michael Flynn, someone who didn't even indicate that he was lying, according to James Comey, he's facing serious consequences. And I think the president could do right for justice by pardoning Michael Flynn.
All right, I'm glad you brought up the Clinton investigation. One second. I'm glad you brought that up, Congressman Duffy, because I want to ask you about this. We remember the time when everybody was trying to find these Page Strzok emails and texts, and there was like this 6-month gap where they couldn't find them at a very critical stage of the investigation. Well, finally, the, I guess, Inspector General issued a report and said, you know what? We lost them. When they turned out one device they couldn't find. The other couple devices they said were wiped clean. I think Mueller might have wiped one. The FBI wiped the other. Is that standard procedure?
No, of course it's not standard procedure. They should have retained those cell phones and the records of the text between Strzok and Page. But they didn't. But I think what you see, Jesse, is an utter disregard and respect for the process and the law, number one. But number two, I think the FBI had such contempt for Donald Trump winning this election, which is basically a contempt for the American people who elected him.
Good point.
They were willing to twist and contort the laws to actually try to prosecute him and implement that insurance plan to make sure that the electorate didn't have its way, that the FBI and the liberal progressive elites got their way to take Donald Trump out. And so whether it's the Russia investigation, whether it's collusion or campaign finance laws, they won't stop, not looking for the truth. They won't stop until they take out Donald Trump.
And Congressman Gates, we're just hearing about Hillary. She said under oath that she did the email server for convenience. And she also blamed her husband, Bill Clinton. Wouldn't be the first time she blamed her husband for trouble. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, you don't typically bleach something inadvertently. With Hillary Clinton,
oops, I bleached it.
That's not something that you typically do with technology. And so I think that with Hillary Clinton, you have someone who just fundamentally believed that the rules didn't apply to her, and you can understand why. For the Clintons, for decades, they've been able to evade consequence and have things kind of tilt in their favor. And it really is unfortunate that we didn't do more in this Congress to drill down, but I think there's more to come. Michael Horowitz is going to give additional reports on the media's influence in the FBI, leaking stories and getting improper benefits as a result. So I think we'll see even more about how we can drain the swamp and get rid of some of the deep state entities that are working against our president.
All right, that sounds pretty juicy. All right, guys, I got to run. The three best looking guys on television right now have to say goodbye.
You have the best hair, Jesse.
We'll see you later. Thank you very much.
All right, we get back to our top story tonight. As we mentioned in our opening monologue, Robert Mueller's team on defense tonight. Really serious claims. The FBI pressuring General Flynn to be interviewed without an attorney present. Well, that has now got the attention of U.S. District Judge Emmett G. Sullivan. He's now ordered Mueller to hand over all documents related to the Flynn interview by 3 p.m. tomorrow. And on top of that, then you have James Comey on tape boasting, oh, we totally took advantage of the fact that this is a new administration. We wouldn't have done this in the Obama or Bush years. Really? Here to discuss it more, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and the host of Sinclair's Full Measure, Cheryl Atkinson, is with us. Is this how we treat American heroes, that we now brag, oh, this is something that I wouldn't have done or gotten away with a more organized administration like the Obama administration and the Bush administration, so I took full advantage. On top of the deputy FBI director telling Flynn he doesn't need a lawyer and that they wanted him relaxed. Meanwhile, because of the unmasking and leaking of raw intelligence, something, by the way, Cheryl Atkinson knows pretty much about personally, they had a direct transcript that they shouldn't have had. Congressman, okay, when does this end and when do these people get held accountable? Instead of the people with the taxi medallions and the loan applications.
Well, that's why we've always said we need a second special counsel, because, you know, we can't put anyone in jail. We can just try to get answers. But you're so right, Sean. When you say I got away with something, that just tells you you didn't do it the right way. You didn't do it. You didn't follow the rules. You didn't do it the way you were supposed to. They were so focused on getting President Trump that they were willing to set up a lieutenant general, a guy who served our country, as you said, 33 years. So that's the most egregious part of this, what they did to General Flynn. The other thing I think it's important to understand is Mike Flynn ran the Defense Intelligence Agency. He had to know his conversations with Kislyak were being listened to, were being monitored. So he had to know that. There's no reason for him to come in there and say something that wasn't true. He just got caught because he didn't know they were setting him up like they did. And so Judge Sullivan demanding these documents is exactly what needs to happen.
The dynamic trio, Comey, McCabe, and Strzok, Cheryl Atkinson. You could relate this. You could relate to this, I'm sure, in your own way, especially on masking surveillance issues. But more importantly, I can't believe this has happened in our country. I don't care where you stand on the political spectrum.
I think you're getting at what I think is the bigger story, really, and is underreported in terms of how big it really is, which is the surveillance and other alleged abuses implemented by some bad actors in our intelligence community. And the problem is, you know, I'm glad if Judge Sullivan is flirting around the edges of this in the Flynn case, but who ultimately does anything about it? Because those accused, as in the government computer intrusions to me or other things that we've talked about, are the ones who have the prosecutorial authority. And if they're not going to agree to investigate themselves and prosecute themselves, and so far they haven't, then where do you turn in all this?
I don't know how we remedy this between, you go back to, they're all the same characters in this play.
Yeah.
And, it's Strzok and Comey writing an exoneration before investigation. She was guilty. Biggest slam dunk obstruction case ever with the email server and not responding with a subpoena and erasing and bleach bit. And then, of course, the FISA abuse. James Comey's admission, Jim Jordan, they didn't vet it, but he put a signature on this thing to spy on an opposition party candidate. They've committed fraud against the FISA court. They don't even tell the judge who paid for it. So, it may have a political taint to it. That is not how things are supposed to work under this Constitution, under our Fourth Amendment rights.
No, you're exactly right. He said in the deposition last week that he didn't even know that they had a legal duty, if there was a legal duty, to present exculpatory information to the FISA judge. Of course you have to do that. And for the head of the FBI to say he didn't know that they technically had a legal duty to do that is scary. The other thing I come back to, Sean, is never forget the bias that exists with these key people. McCabe, Comey, Strzok, Page, Baker, these key people. Remember the name they gave the Clinton investigation. Mid-year exam. Something they had to get through. They knew the fix was in. They were going to get it taken care of, kind of get through the mid-year exam. But what was the name they gave the Trump-Russia investigation? Crossfire Hurricane. Just the names show you the bias that was there from the get-go with these top people at the FBI who ran both investigations.
And Cheryl, if you look at what they did in all of these cases here, they're involved, the same characters, the same players, the same people that had a bias. They did this on week one of the Trump administration. Sounds like an insurance policy to me. Sounds like a media leak strategy is coming thereafter.
It sounds like an operation. And something I think we learned from Comey, I was someone who kind of thought this was plowing old ground to look back at the Clinton material. But in light of what he said, Comey said in his testimony that Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, should have recused herself and didn't, and was either compromised or appeared to be, not just from the tarmac meeting, but about some other unnamed material we don't know about. Number two, he says, had he known about Agent Strzok and Page's text messages, he wouldn't have let them stay on the investigation that they did on Clinton.
Oh, that's right. And they wiped clean the phones of Strzok and Page when he worked for Mueller. And you know why I question